Okay, let's think a bit about decisional capacity. Remember, voluntary informed consent is only possible where one is in fact dealing with a patient who has decisional capacity. The first thing you should understand about this idea of decisional capacity is that it is a clinical determination about the actual abilities of the patient in front of me, and it's distinguishable from the legal determination of competence. Legal status or a legal right to make decisions for oneself may or may not correspond with a patient's actual capacity to do so. Our moral obligation is always to determine that actual decisional capacity. So what is the basis for a clinical determination that a patient, in fact, does have decisional capacity? A patient only has decisional capacity if she is able to understand and process or use and apply information about her diagnosis, prognosis, and various treatment options. That processing and using of information involves an ability to weigh the relative benefits, burdens, and risks of the treatment options before her. The patient must display an ability to truly compare the different packages of benefits, burdens, and risks associated with the various options. And in doing that comparing, to truly be decisional or to have decisional capacity, she must be able to apply her own values to that comparison. Her wants, her desires, her hopes, her fears are relevant to the decision before her and the weighing and comparing of the various options. Now, if a patient is inconsistent in their decision making, if they constantly change their minds or seem to be unable to make up their minds, expressing different judgments about the options before them from one day to the next or even 1 hour to the next, it may well be that they truly aren't capable of applying their own values as they attempt to compare the options before them and weigh their relative benefits, burdens, and risks, or that inability to make a decision or that constant wavering in the decision may reflect an inability to understand. Now, finally, of course, a patient must be able to communicate their decision, even if in some cases this only means a definitive nodding or shaking of the head. Listing the various aspects of decisional capacity like this seems simple enough. But in reality, determining decisional capacity is often quite complex. For one thing, as Post and Bluestein note, decisional capacity isn't global or universal or all-comprehensive. Rather, it's decision-specific. This means a person may have decisional capacity in relation to something like what to eat for dinner, but not with respect to other things, such as what's the best use of their money, how should they be investing their resources. Or they may be capable of deciding what to eat for dinner and how to invest their money, but not have decisional capacity when it comes to complex decisions about the therapeutic options in the face of a complex and developing disease. So decisional capacity is decision specific, not global or universal. A person doesn't simply have it or not have it. It depends upon the context. Moreover, decisional capacity fluctuates or changes. A patient may be lucid and sharp in their comprehension at some moments, and for a variety of reasons, debilitating pain, the effects of various drugs, completely lack that capacity or that comprehension at other moments. Now, one of the things that Post and Bluestein make clear is that the simple fact that a patient rejects or disagrees with a medical recommendation is not evidence in and of itself that a patient lacks decisional capacity. It may well be simply that in the context of their own lives and their own values, they weigh the relative benefits and burdens of the various treatment options differently than the way their physician or the healthcare professionals do. They have every right to do that, and simply disagreeing is not evidence that the patient lacks decisional capacity. Simply refusing a treatment that seems obviously best to the physician is not in and of itself evidence of a lack of decisional capacity. Having said that, when a patient does seem to be making choices that are wildly mistaken, it is appropriate to take care to assure that they truly have decisional capacity before we simply act on their decision, claiming that we are respecting their autonomy. No, if a person lacks decisional capacity, we don't respect their autonomy by following whatever judgment they make. Finally, Post and Bluestein note that because decisional capacity is complex and difficult to measure and is not global but decision specific, sometimes we will use a sliding scale. That is to say, we will recognize and acknowledge a patient's decisional capacity about relatively insignificant matters, like what to have for dinner, or whether to leave the shades open or closed, but not acknowledge their decisional capacity for making some life or death decision because of its greater complexity. Now, that might seem silly or inappropriate, but I think the idea here is that we do want to respect patient autonomy as broadly and to the degree that we are able, and to the degree that it's appropriate. So I mean, think about this. Just because we don't think a patient is necessarily capable of making a life and death decision, that does not mean that we should make all their decisions for them. We should enable them to maintain their dignity by participating as much as possible in those decisions that are less weighty, less significant, that also have to be made.